All these detours are making me crazy. I feel like sometimes all I want is for things to be straightforward, for them to turn out perfect like they do in my head. But it's not like that's how reality works. At least now I kinda know what I'm doing, though. But still, even with that being the case, I've gotta wait for silly things like the temperature of the garage, forced delays, and more distractions. And I'm starting to wonder if I'll get to drive this car this season. Time's moving way too fast. Might as well not let it go to waste. Deep down, I know that this wrap is not going to turn out perfect, but right now, for some reason, I'm struggling to accept that. It's like I'm so stuck with the idea of what it could be in my head that I'm letting small things bother me. Issues nobody else would really notice. As good as the doors are, they're not perfect. And the more I realize that, the more part of me wants to tear it all off and start again. But on the other side of the coin, I realized that those doors are probably going to be some of the better panels this car has. They weren't damaged like the trunk, the hood, or the fender were. Those panels are going to be an uphill battle, and they're going to need re-prepped completely. But doing that is going to make the garage all dusty again, and it'll slow the momentum of my learning the PPF technique. So I'm kind of thinking that before I re-sand the hood and the fender from the donor car, I should finish all the green panels that have a chance to turn out nice. That way there's not just dust floating in the air making them worse. Seems like a good plan in theory, and who knows, maybe these doors will turn out better than the first two. I followed the same dry install technique that I've been using for the past couple panels, and it's very similar to how you'd install traditional vinyl. The real difference being this material is a lot thinner and more forgiving than vinyl is. So long as the garage is up to temperature, you don't even really need to heat it to stretch it. It just kind of conforms to whatever you put it on. That being said, you can still overheat it and overstretch it. So I was pretty mindful of that. The technique for all of these flat panels is relatively the same though. The whole goal seems to be finding the reflection, stretching one side till it's flat and then stretching the other, then using a squeegee to press air out of the entire thing. Small bubbles will come out through the film in time, but the goal is still to get as many of the large ones out as possible. Now it was just a matter of fighting with the fact that even though this feels like it's going fast, time is bleeding away. It's one of those tasks that puts you in a flow state, and while wrapping a door feels like it takes a couple minutes, in reality, it's taking an hour or more. It's like some sort of a trance. Just like last time where I felt a click with a specific wrap technique, I think I'm currently feeling another one. Something that makes sense in hindsight but never really did before. The edges. On previous cars, I'd leave like half an inch to wrap around the back of the panel. In my head, the more material behind the panel, the less it was likely to lift. But ironically, that just isn't the case. Believe it or not, the opposite's kinda true. 3 to 5 millimeters is really all that's needed. And once that clicked, I felt like each panel started to turn out better and better. I want this car to be as perfect as I can make it. I don't want it to look like a hodgepodge mess of different pieces. But what I'm now realizing is no matter what, I'm going to have to do that. On most cars, the roof, the rear bumper, the front bumper, and the rear quarter panel are different pieces. On the E30, they're actually all the same connected piece, which means no matter what, I can't wrap it in one piece. The roll is just not the right size to do that, so I'll have to hide a seam somewhere, meaning it just won't be perfect. But that doesn't mean I can't choose an intelligent spot to hide it. And specifically, I think it would look best hidden at the base of the C-pillar. My thought is that since there's already a body line there, it's not going to look off for there to also be a seam of PPF layers. And that's also going to let me do the majority of the rear quarter in one piece as well. And as far as panels go, it's probably the most technically complicated to wrap on the entire car. It's similar to the front fender, but way bigger and needs quite a bit more planning to not get the material to bunch up that much. Plus, it wraps all the way down to the back of the rocker panel. So the size of the panel is pretty large as well. Great for practice, in other words. I just hope I don't waste too much material learning it. Somehow the first rear quarter on this car turned out pretty solid, so I figured I would try and repeat that on the other side, making it even better. And the only real difference here is I need to remove the antenna, but it's only held in with 2 screws in the trunk, and the rubber grommet pops out the top. Love how simple this car is. For some reason, even though the green panels keep getting better with every attempt, they're still not perfect in my head. And I know it would be impossible for them to be given what this car is, but it's still weirdly challenging to acknowledge that. It's like in my head, I'm wanting this car to be something it's not. Before doing any of this, my favorite part about this car was the fact that I could just get in and drive. I never had to worry about much cosmetically because it was in such bad condition. That's just not what this car's purpose was. But now for some reason, something as simple as a single speck of dust under an entire panel makes me want to redo it all. 2 sides of the same coin. It's like this car spent its entire life with me so close to looking terrible that now that it's starting to look decent, I'm kind of sad it's not perfect. I don't really know how to describe it, and I know I'm going to be my own worst critic, but it's just weird to think about this car in a way I never have before. It's absolutely insane to me that more of this car is wrapped than is unwrapped now. And it's crazy how much depth the surface has now. I guess that's kind of what you get for spending weeks sanding. It's all in the prep after all. And funny enough, I'll have to go back to prep to finish the car, which I'm a little nervous for, but I've got plenty of green panels to do beforehand, so no sense in freaking out just yet. Instead, I think it's time to reattempt the first panel I attempted on this car, and I'm hoping that the new technique will result in a much better outcome. Either way, for my car, a dry install is the way to go, I think. And it's cool that the film will work both ways. That being said, for a car that actually has intact paint and clear coat, from everything I've seen, the wet install is by far the way to go. So someday I hope I get to try it on a car that actually has paint. But now I'm just glad I've found a way forward. After glossing out the top flat portion, I moved on to the back of the trunk, which is exactly where I started having issues last time. This time, however, those issues were not present whatsoever. Just like every other panel I've done with a dry install, it's predictable. It sticks just as much as you'd need to get it properly stuck to the car, but not enough to tear up any paint when you lift it. And for this car, given the surface, that fine balance is the issue I was having trouble finding before. So to be honest, it's kinda nice to be able to see the actual results of learning. To finish a panel, which just a couple days ago seemed like it would never work. And not just that, but to actually be pretty happy with the results. It's not perfect, and the more I look at it, the more I notice imperfections in the surface itself, but as far as the wrap installation goes, it's like a mirror, which is pretty surreal to say about this car. Oh. Well, I guess the roof isn't happening today. Neither is the fender or the hood. All of that learning seemed to have paid a pretty expensive toll on the amount of material I used, so now it looks like I'll be stuck with even another delay on my hands. I guess I almost asked for it given how much I was trying to avoid a detour. Just in hindsight, or not at all. At this point, I don't know if a straightforward path is ever really real, but it's not like they need to be, and it's not like this car needs to be perfect. It's a driver. It's going to be parked outside and enjoyed in the snow just like the other cars. And I think I would hate if I somehow lost that part of the car by changing too much about it. I've just got to keep making the most of the time I do have. Forced delay or not, it's still not worth letting it go to waste. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. That's the best way you can help support me and my content. Either way, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.